The year was 1995. Rumblings of a new console that would redefine how we would all play games was popping up leading to E3. And 10-year-old me was not ready for how this new console would change how I played and felt about video games to come. Early on, my siblings and I were all about what Nintendo and Sega had to offer. Simpler times with video games for sure. But a lot of fun memories came with it. However, when Sony had announced a new console, showcasing what was in store for the realm of console gaming, things were looking pretty different. My dad, who I owe a great deal of getting into games as far back as the Atari, was heavily into new tech and gadgets, and was always looking for the console that would be more for adults rather than children. As we already had most of the consoles, he felt the PlayStation would be a great console for him. Fast forward to Christmas of '95, and while we got other cool games for our previous systems, there was the PlayStation my dad had received from my mom. Of course, I was excited to give this system a go. It would be a year before my dad felt he didn't have a lot of time to play games, so he bestowed to my brothers and I the PlayStation, the one console that was growing in popularity and games. I can't even explain how excited I was to finally have one. With the PlayStation finally being in hand, I would go on to experience some of the most amazing titles I'd ever experienced up to that point. Naughty Dog's Crash Bandicoot series, Cool Borders, Ace Combat, Warhawk, Twisted Metal, Resident Evil, Spyro, Jet Moto, Final Fantasy, and the list goes on. I understand where the popularity came from. I felt like I had ascended into another realm. It was a lot for a kid to take in, and I knew gaming wasn't going to be the same. This was PlayStation. As time in life went on, it wouldn't be too surprising that Sony would announce a follow-up to their successful console, the PlayStation 2. At E3 in 2000, the PS2 was unveiled in the US and was scheduled to release by holiday that year. It's undeniable how much hype I had for that console. PS1 had shown me so much new stuff, and now there was a new PlayStation with more power. The Final Fantasy VIII graphics demo shown off was more than enough to get me hyped. I was sold. Knowing what potential was awaiting with this was something my brothers and I had to have. We immediately begged our parents for this console. Fast forward to Christmas of 2000. We weren't sure if there was going to be a PS2 sitting under that tree, but come the morning of and unwrapping all of the gifts, there it was, the PlayStation 2. I still recall to this day how my mom managed to snag one through all the craziness there was to get one. I can't thank my parents enough for the ultimate gift and letting us indulge in our hobby. PlayStation 2 had some of the best games available on a console. Not only were the games graphically superior to the PS1, but the stories were becoming more mature and engaging. I can recall playing some of the greats at the beginning. Grand Theft Auto 3, Devil May Cry, Dark Cloud, The Bouncer, Klonoa 2, Gran Turismo 3, Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts, and so many more. Seriously, the list would be huge. I definitely plan to dive into some of my favorites in more depth in other videos. There was a reason that the PS2 went on to be the best-selling console of all time. There was no place else to have the greatest experiences in gaming. Now, I understand this is a subjective opinion, but those sales paint the true picture. Needless to say, the slogan, "Live in your world, play in ours," was absolutely correct. Years later, while in college and still maintaining my passion for gaming, it would be an ultimate surprise to know that there was a PlayStation 3 in the works. During Sony's E3 in 2006, they showed off the machine, with a few games. I was a little underwhelmed, and the price was a shocker. Coming in at $599 US, this wasn't anything anyone had ever been used to, but I had to have one. When the system launched on November 11, 2006, despite the price tag, stores were slammed. Sadly, I wasn't able to be a part of the launch wave. I can only watch as everyone else who stood in the line snatched up the newest PlayStation console. Needless to say, I was a bit bummed. However, a few months later, around April 2007, I had saved up enough and the console was available enough that I marched myself into the nearest electronics store and snatched up the PS3. I was high on excitement. Not only was this the first time I had been able to purchase a console with my own hard-earned money, but I was finally able to say I owned the newest PlayStation. I definitely recognized in the early stages of this console it had some growing to do, but booting up Resistance Fallen Man and seeing how graphics had jumped was insane. PS3 would go on to improve exponentially, and some of the greatest games ever were being released on it. Uncharted, The Last of Us, MotorStorm, Killzone 2, Valkyria Chronicles, Grand Theft Auto 5, and so much more. Creation and evolution of the PlayStation Network ushered in a whole new world and ways to play games. Sony had done so much to improve PS3, and this literally had me excited for the future and beyond for the PlayStation. What other greatness awaited for the PlayStation brand? 2013 was a standout year for PlayStation. The games were coming and my excitement wasn't waning. In February, Sony had dropped the coolest surprise ever with the announcement of the PlayStation 4. I recall Mark Cerny taking the stage and showcasing and explaining all the newest features of this new console. Of course, I knew I had to have whatever it was gonna be. At that year's E3, it was officially showcased and the price was announced, $399 US. Needless to say, as a fan, this was a sweet spot, especially after the PS3's launch point. I honestly expected the PS4 would cost a lot for something that was showing off better graphics and more power. I was sold, especially considering I had such a great history with all the PlayStations prior. This newest console generation was a little different for me. This was probably the most important to me personally. Since the announcement at E3 and having a great friend that worked at a local GameStop, I was able to pre-order this console and saved enough to literally attend a launch event for a console. While this may not be huge for some, for me this was a momentous occasion and I was able to be the first in line and celebrate a PlayStation launch with fellow fans. The flood of emotions from being 10 years old and receiving the first PlayStation from my parents up to this point had hit me hard. I will definitely admit that there were manly tears that were shed. The following years of gaming on the PS4 had been some of the best in my life. I was actually able to share these experiences with my girlfriend as we played some of the finest games the PS4 had to offer. God of War, Uncharted 4, Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding, Red Dead 2, Persona 5, Witcher 3, and loads more. As far as I was concerned, greatness truly awaited. Of course, on the horizon there was Sony's newest machine cooking up. The hype and anticipation for the PlayStation 5 is something I believe everyone felt. Sony announced the PS5 in April of 2019. After having such a huge success with the PS4, I doubt anyone wasn't looking forward to what was next. However, the wait for the successor of the PS4 truly felt like a long one. With the events that happened to our world, it made trying to grab the next-gen console a true test of fandom and online perseverance. To say it was easy to get a PS5 was a deep mistake. Due to the global pandemic, most places were no longer hosting in-person events. What made the situation worse was that pre-ordering one was going to be a tough online experience. Come the revealing of the PS5 console in summer of 2020, there was a huge amount of pressure on how pre-ordering and obtaining one would work. Sony would later announce pre-orders would open on September 17th. Needless to say, when the time rolled around, it was headaches and insane internet issues. After some intense hours of searching and refreshing, I was actually able to secure one with GameStop online. Later, I was invited by PlayStation to pre-order one via their PlayStation Direct website. I was thrilled, and I wanted to share this experience with my girlfriend. I was really looking forward to having her share the same feelings I did when receiving a new console on launch day. We celebrated together and I was overjoyed to see her smile. The last few years of gaming on the PlayStation 5 have been pretty decent. There are definitely some changes on the landscape with this new console generation that have been pretty different from the past, but overall I'm still pretty happy to game on PlayStation. My favorite experiences so far have been with Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, God of War Ragnarok, and Horizon Forbidden West. While I know this generation is still getting started, I feel like PlayStation will be once again knocking it out of the park. There's even the PSVR 2 that just recently launched, and I look forward to getting my hands on that at a later time. So there you have it, my personal history with PlayStation. It's been a long 29 years with this brand, and so many fond memories. I'm always catching myself feeling pretty nostalgic about video games, and no matter how much they've changed, I'm just happy to be a part of that history. I know many other gamers out there have their own stories from their time with PlayStation, and every one of us has our own favorites. I absolutely look forward to what is next. Before I wrap up, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to listen. If you'd like to share some of your fond memories with PlayStation, please feel free to comment below. Thanks for checking out my first video, and I hope you all will stick around for more. See you guys in the next video.